everybody. My name is Tamara Kerna, and I am the chairperson of the ARZA Committee of Beshert. And we are very, very honored to have our guest speaker, who is Anat Hoffman, to speak to us this afternoon. And very short, little introduction. Anat Hoffman is, sorry about this. She is the director of the Israel Religious Action Center since 2002. And she was selected as the Person of the Year by Haaretz in 2013 and chosen as one of the 50 most influential Jews by the Jerusalem Post in 2014. Globes also named her as one of Israel's top women activists in 2018. So without further ado, I'm going to let Anat speak to us. And if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask her. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. And I'm amazed at your beautiful synagogue. It really is a landmark. I know I come from the second oldest city in the world. You know which one is the oldest city in the world? It's our neighbor down the road, Jericho. Jericho is the oldest habitat of humans in a city in the world. We have some synagogues that are thousands of years old, but in modern Israel, the oldest modern Israeli synagogue is 73, and yours is way older because the whole country is only 73 years old. And I wanted to make some outrageous statements, starting with the fact that I think that Israel is way too important to be left to the Israelis. And I really would like to invite you all to unleash yourself. And if you have something to say about Israel or to Israel, not to silence yourself. It turns out that for many years, and I think that served the powers that be in Israel, we told diaspora Jews that the best way to be patriotic and the best way to express your love of Israel is to shut up. And if you see things in Israel that really bother you, if you don't want to be a traitor to your people, you just keep it in, because the goyim are watching, and we don't wash our laundry with the goyim watching, and we should not criticize Israel out loud and join the enemies. And this Israeli is trying to tell you the exact opposite. And this is a dialogue, so feel free to interrupt me at any time with a question or a comment, because I know this is somewhat subversive. I heard a taxi driver once tell an American tourist that I see someone's an American tourist that she should not tell him what to do in Israel because he went to 5 wars, he served in the army, he pays taxes here, and besides, we're a sovereign state and no one should tell us what to do. Well, on the question of, for example, the Hebrew Union College being an institution of Jewish learning. Do you know that the Hebrew Union College is not recognized in Israel as an institution of Jewish learning? That really shouldn't bother us, except all the Reform rabbis on the planet are graduates of the Hebrew Union College. So Israel is the only place in the world where the Hebrew Union College is not recognized. Therefore, all its graduates are not rabbis. You realize that? You realize that any Reform rabbi or conservative rabbi cannot officiate in a wedding in Israel? I visited some of the institutions that ordain Orthodox rabbis in Israel, and some of them, ladies and gentlemen, don't exist. Some of them are P.O. boxes. I know what was the curriculum of any Reform rabbi I meet. All I need to do is look up when she or he went to HUC, look up and see how many hours of Talmud, how many hours of theology, how many hours of Hebrew, and I will know what that person knows. And they know quite a bit. Orthodox rabbis in Israel, thousands of them, 1,600 of them are state-paid rabbis. I have no idea what they studied. There is no curriculum. So the system is built so there is discrimination against Reform and conservative Jews. This is by far not the most important issue in Israel, but don't you think as Reform Jews, you have a right, maybe I should even correct it and say you have a goddamn duty to say that the Hebrew Union College, in your opinion, is an institution of Jewish learning, and that the state of Israel, the only sovereign Jewish state on the planet, should join every university in the world. Do you know that the Pope recognizes the Hebrew Union College and recognized this institution? Because the Hebrew Union College is not recognized, then until very recently, until last month, our rabbis were not able to officiate in conversions in Israel. People who wanted to convert to Judaism in Israel could either convert Orthodox or leave Israel and be converted abroad, but not in Israel. Last month, we won a historic case, 15 years in the making, 15 years in the Supreme Court. And as of last month, Reform converts can become Israeli citizens and not leave Israel. But what does it mean that Israel has only one way to get married? Orthodox. Only one way to get divorced? Orthodox. Only one way to be buried? We have 310 cemeteries, 300 of them are Orthodox. Only one way to observe kashrut. Only one way to observe Shabbat. Until recently, on Passover, any person visiting a hospital had to open their bags, and the security people would check in your bags whether all the food you carry is kosher for Passover. I must tell you that the training of security guards does not include kashrut observance. Many of them made mistakes. Many of them are not Jewish. Many of them had no idea if tahini is kosher lePesach or not. And maybe it's kosher for Sephardic Jews, but not kosher for Ashkenazi Jews. What does it mean that during the 8 days of Pesach, anyone who wants to visit his grandmother in a hospital has to think whether the pita bread they're carrying is kasher or not kasher? If they're Arab, you think they should be able to bring their mother in the hospital some pita without the security people confiscating the pita? Well, just a few months ago, the Supreme Court ruled that this is illegal. And this Passover was the first one when we could actually walk into the hospital, yes, open our bags for a security, but the security would check for bombs, knives, hand grenades, not for a pita bread. Until recently, in El Al and many other carriers to Israel, if a woman boarded the plane and was supposed to sit next to an ultra-Orthodox person, there were cases, and please raise your hand if you've heard of such cases, where the ultra-Orthodox man refuses to sit next to her. Yes, and she is forced to move to a different seat. Just imagine for a minute that ultra-Orthodox men said they are not willing to sit next to a Black person or next to an old person. Well, but for 20 years, they refused to sit next to women and they got away with it. Women had to move. Girls had to move. Well, we put an end to this. A few years ago, we represented an Orthodox woman, Renee Rabinovich, an 81-year-old lady who was asked to move on a flight from Newark to Tel Aviv. The man sitting next to her said that his religion forbids him to sit next to a woman. We went to court. For about a year. El Al used all sorts of delay tactics because our client was 81 years old and they were waiting for her to croak, as they say in American. 1 year of all sorts of tactics to just delay the case. But Renee Rabinovich didn't die. Renee Rabinovich marched into the court with her 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and get this, 32 great grandchildren. She's a Holocaust survivor from Belgium. There isn't a court in the land that wouldn't award her the full compensation. And from that moment, this is the El Al policy. If you are asked by an ultra-Orthodox person to move, ladies, listen to me. You must find the flight attendant. Don't capitulate to social pressure, but don't say to them that I'm absolutely not moving. Say, I need to talk to the flight attendant. If the flight attendant tells you to move, or with a movement of her hand indicates that you should move, ladies, it is worth $18,000. That's the verdict we got. Since March of last year, we've been following El Al carefully. We have many videos where a flight attendant is telling the ultra-Orthodox guy, you're going to leave the plane, you're going to forfeit your ticket, you're going to get your suitcase in a week. I suggest, sir, you sit down. She is not moving. I will not ask her to move. It is illegal for me to ask her to move. She is keeping her seat. Ladies, take your seats and keep them. But just remember, don't talk to other people, just the flight attendant. The flight attendant knows. El Al had to retrain everybody. And so far, they have not paid us $18,000 because they have kept to their agreement. However, in EasyJet, they did not, and we have just won for a client a compensation, which I'm not at liberty to tell you what the sum is, but if you read The Independent, The Chronicle, and many other British papers that covered it, she did not lose by suing EasyJet. So there. I would like to ask Tamara, or is it Ellen, if you could now show a short video about the women of the wall. It's a short video, it's 2 minutes and it's just music. Why don't you watch it and see what it's like to be a woman praying at the wall in Jerusalem. Woo! No sound, my dear. It's a problem, no sound. Start from the beginning.
Tamara, unmute yourself. Tamara?
Yeah.
Go back, stop sharing.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Sorry.
now go back to sharing.
Okay. Oh, share sound.
You
Okay.
see it says
Sorry.
share a couple. There are two things there. You have to check both of them.
Okay.
The one that
Did
says
it.
share sound and the other one, okay? And
I
then it'll
did
be
it.
fine.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh. It's telling me I need to restart my audio and enter a password.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay, we could do without the video. It's okay. It's okay. Tamara, don't worry about
I'm
it.
not,
It was,
well,
don't worry.
let me try.
The minute you said password, you lost me. No good, no good, no good. It's no good. Stop it. Stop, stop, stop. No good. Ladies and gentlemen, forget it. Let's not do it. It's not working out. It's okay, Tamara, don't worry about it. It's technology. Let's just, if you can unshare and we'll just continue without it. It's okay. It's okay.
I'm
Don't
so
worry about it.
sorry. I don't know
Don't
what
worry
happened.
about it. Don't worry. It doesn't matter, really. It doesn't.
Oh,
I can explain to you with words what that video shows. In that video, you see a group of women, the women of the wall, who've been trying to pray at the women's section of the wall for, get this, 32 years. And how do they want to pray? The women of the wall want to wear a prayer shawl, a tallis. Have you ever seen a woman with a tallis? I have. Okay, so they want to wear a tallis. They want to pray out loud with their voices, like say the words Shema Yisrael. They want to put on phylacteries, and they want to read from the Torah. The women of the wall have succeeded in 3 decades to win the right to read, to put on a prayer shawl. Myself and many women were arrested by the Jerusalem police for wearing a prayer shawl, for praying out loud, for lighting a menorah, for reading a Megillah, for the book of Esther on Purim, for any kind of these things. And we won the right to pray out loud. We won the right to put on phylacteries. In fact, we had a workshop on phylacteries at the wall. We won the right to light a menorah, but there's one thing that we cannot do, and that is to read from the Torah. There are 200 Torah scrolls for public use at the wall, but it's not for women. The public is only men. Any man who comes can receive a Torah scroll and enjoy it, and I have no problems with it. May they all read Torah 3 times a week. However, women are forbidden from receiving any one of the public Torah, and they are not able to bring one from home because our bags are checked. Remember the thing about Passover? Our bags are checked by the security, not for terrorist instruments, not for a bomb or a knife, but they're checked for not only our bags are checked, we have 3 parameters that are
Anat,
being checked.
Anat, can you wait a second? I just want to make an announcement because it'll help your presentation. If everybody could stop their video, it will help the broadband a bit. So, and if you want to say something, just raise your hand in the participants area, or mention say something in the chat so we know that. Okay, but I suggest that if we all stop our video, okay, in other words, so we don't see everybody here, it will help us. What was happening is you were getting cut off or not. So this should help.
Oh,
Okay. It's not your fault.
okay, Eric, I want to take you home with me. There is something about your tone which is so relaxed, even when the video isn't working and I get frozen and this thing is, technology is betraying us. You seem to be so much relaxed on that. We could use a dose of Eric here in Israel. Okay.
Thank you. Oh,
So for those of you who missed it, women are not allowed to read Torah. Just what you heard. Women are not allowed to read Torah in Israel at the holiest site of the Jewish people. The law of holy places has 13 regulations. Don't piss on the wall, don't spit on the wall, no graffiti on the wall. And regulation 13 is one cannot perform a religious act contrary to local custom, which offends the feelings of others. Anyone performing such an act, 6 months imprisonment. You understand now how I went to jail? Because of that. I performed a religious act contrary to local custom, which offends the feelings of others. How did we win all the rights that I mentioned before? We went to court, and the court recognized that after 32 years, we're goddamn local custom. The wall has been in Israel's hands for 53 years. We've been there 32 years. So by now, we are local custom, and our local custom is to read from the Torah. So reading Torah is a criminal offense in Israel at the wall. This is hard to wrap your head around that. And women of the wall fight against this discrimination. I see Gail wants to speak and Ellen wants to speak. So go ahead.
Okay, shalom, Anat. Good to see you. And my question is, does Israel have a Bill of Rights that guarantees human rights and civil liberties to all citizens, including Arab Israeli citizens? Our Constitution has a Bill of Rights attached to it. Does Israel have something similar?
So thank you for this question. And the answer is no. We don't have a constitution and we don't have a Bill of Rights. And sister, if there were a constitution and a Bill of Rights, I'd be unemployed, because every one of the 60 cases that I try every year, 60, that's more than once a week, would have been announced as unconstitutional. Every one of the people that we fight for is just, if we had a constitution, I'd be out of work. I represented last week a Mansour, an Arab doctor, a Christian, who went to a place called Pizza Hut. You have Pizza Hut in America, I know. And he wanted service. He actually was using a voucher of the Ichilov hospital where he works. The hospital didn't want the staff to wander to faraway places to buy lunch, so they gave them vouchers to buy stuff on campus. So he was on campus. He offered the Pizza Hut person the voucher, and the person said, I will not serve you unless you take down that cross that you have around your neck. We represented Mansour and we represented the hospital, because the hospital joined him. He didn't pay cash, he paid with a voucher. And Pizza Hut is going to compensate him for this. But this is clearly unconstitutional. This is discrimination on the basis of religion. And I can tell you till next week, the cases that we do, that if we had a constitution, we would not be trying. And you guys, you should use your constitution more often, because it is a divine document. And we're all drooling. All other young democracies are drooling that you have such a wonderful document.
So, Anat, we have an organization. We have an organization called the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And this organization does bring lawsuits on the basis of violations of the freedom of religion, separation of church and state, article in our Constitution. So in this country, this is a very big issue here in this country, but we do have in our Bill of Rights and our Constitution a separation of church and state. Of course, sometimes the boundaries can get fudged, and sometimes due to politics, there's no separation, but we do have that guarantee. What is preventing Israel from getting a constitution and a Bill of Rights?
So you are joining Yvette Pomerantz, who asked the same question, and I'll tell you what prevents it. We actually, about 10 years ago, sat in the Knesset for a good 2 years with a wonderful document that was based on Israel's Declaration of Independence. And the reason it is not our constitution is because of the ultra-Orthodox politicians. They are willing to have a constitution as long as religious law is above the constitution. And I remember explaining in the corridors of the Knesset, of the parliament, to members of the Knesset, that the thing about constitution, that it's above all other laws. That wouldn't work with the ultra-Orthodox. And sadly, a strain of Judaism, which is zealot, extreme, and very fundamentalist, has grown in Israel. It hasn't grown on the sides of the garden, but right in the middle. These are not shrubs that were just, on the sides. It's because of the monopoly, an ultra-Orthodox monopoly over all religious affairs in Israel, that we've developed this strain. And there's something so refreshing about Judaism in the diaspora. And I want to warn you that if Israel turns to you and says, here you are, old congregation in Brooklyn, we want to help you. You have this lame identity issue with your young people. We will send you a shaliach. We will send you an emissary from Israel who will teach you real Judaism. Say no, my friends. Say no. Don't buy our lame, bankrupt product. What we call Judaism in Israel, you don't want. Israel is so innovative in so many ways, in technology and culture and music and agriculture, but Jewishly, we're quite bankrupt. Don't buy our product. Any more comments or questions? It's wonderful that you are talking.
There are
Yes,
people raising their hands.
This is Ellen. Can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I just wanted to say that we had the pleasure, our temple, our legacy congregation, which is the one before this consolidation, had the pleasure of meeting you, Women of the Wall, Tamara Kerner, myself, and Charlotte Russell, I believe. So we just wanted you to know it was a wonderful experience. It was a little bit of a shocking experience. There was a disruption there from what I remember, but there were also acts of kindness as well, and people who we didn't expect were supporting us. And I was nervous about going there. I wasn't sure I wanted to participate in something that I thought could be dangerous. And then I remembered what I used to do in the 60s and the civil rights. I said, I could do this. And it was a good experience. And it was nice to meet you. And I'm glad to meet you again. So thank you.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, yes, I'm the chairperson of Women of the Wall and one of the founders of the group. And I'm very satisfied that last week on Tuesday, we read from the Torah. And how was that done? The first Reform rabbi member of Knesset ever took his oath last week. And the first act he did is take a Torah scroll, bring it to the Women of the Wall, and we were able to read Torah. Because of his immunity, the security guards were not allowed to touch him or anything on his person. And he walked all the way to the women's section, and we read Torah with him. This took, in national and international news, how the first Reform rabbi ever on the parliament brought the Torah to the Women of the Wall. Any more comments? I love your comments.
Yes, Robert, I don't understand why there are so many secular Jews in Israel, Reform, conservative, non-Jews. Why a handful of people are imposing their doctrines on everybody else?
Robert, you remember the Sandy Hook massacre in America?
Yes.
I read about this horrific murder. You're right now going through a month of murder every day. And I thought, if they're killing preschool children, when will Americans change their gun control laws? And the next thing I read in, I think, New York Times, there was a poll that 85% of Americans want to change your gun control laws. And I thought, great, at least one good thing will come out of this horrific tragedy. And then it failed in the Senate. And I thought to myself, what could be more powerful than 85% of the Americans? How could it be? And you tell me there is this lobby in Washington, the NRA. Oh, they are a fraction of the American public, but they are so powerful, so strong. They threaten politicians. That's why we don't change our gun control laws. Well, the ultra-Orthodox are 13% of Israel's population, and they do not run into opposition from the seculars and the non-Jews because everyone needs them for the coalition. And that's how they become more and more hungry, more and more ambitious, to the point that, I can read you one of the laws that they're about to introduce to the new Knesset. Just hang in there. I'll show you. Here it is. No building or institution can have a sign called synagogue or Beit Midrash or house of learning unless everyone in it and its founders believe that the Torah, both the written Torah and the oral Torah, were given in effect to Israel in Sinai by the Almighty Himself. All prayers inside the building have to be according to the Shulchan Aruch and Orthodoxy, as it is written by the great rabbis of Israel today, who believe that the Torah was given to Israel by God Himself. Third, every building or any building can carry a sign called temple. Okay, that's one of the laws that they're thinking. Any person can be called rabbi, but the word Rav can be only given to a person who believes that the Torah, both the oral and the written, were given in effect by the Almighty to the people of Israel in Sinai.
Thank
This
you.
is one of the laws that is going to be introduced. I understand that after we were given the Torah on Tuesday by Rabbi Kariv, one of the new members of Knesset said that the first law he will pass is that Reform Jews will not be allowed at the wall. Period. It's just think about it. You come to the wall, and what questions are you asked by security to find out whether you are a Reform Jew? We're going off the rails. When I say that the Judaism in Israel has become a repugnant product to secular and liberal Jews, I mean it. And I think we need you. I think we need sane Jews who believe in diversity, who know that Judaism comes in, there's more than one way to be Jewish. We need your help. And that's why in the chat, I put a link. Can you see the link that I put in for our campaign? Please tell me you see it on the chat. It's the very first thing you know what? I could put
Yeah,
it
we see
again.
it. It's at the
See it?
top. Yeah,
Okay, I'm putting it again. I'm so proud that I know how to do that. Here it is again, yay. Please, this is our campaign. It's our first crowdfunding campaign. And the idea is you give your money and you help us empower those liberal voices in Israel that need help. I think that you are players and you shouldn't, it's not a spectator sport. You need to participate. I see that Diane has something she wants to say. Diane Figueroa.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Anat, for your presentation. And I'm going to take you up on your offer to speak out. And I would say, first of all, as a Jew, I believe that Israel's continued safe and continued existence is important to every Jew worldwide. Having said that, though, I would say that I do not feel a personal connection to Israel. Part of that is because of what you've been talking about now, the quote unquote Orthodox ownership of Israel. And that is an extreme turnoff, which I'm sure you know. But I think it's more than that. It's certainly after 70 plus years, Israel's culture has developed, and it's no longer the Israel of Leon Uris's Exodus, of the Holocaust survivors, of the Chalutzim. It's got its own culture. It's a different, separate country, which is not, I am not a citizen of that country. So as the years go on, I feel further distance from it. But in particular, the Orthodox ownership of it is absolutely repugnant. And I don't feel, it doesn't speak to me at all. This, I want Israel to continue to exist and be safe. But like, I want France to exist and I want Italy to exist. I mean, of course, I don't feel the same way about those countries, but I don't feel a personal connection. And, and I think I feel sad about that.
So first I wanna commend all of you that you have provided such a safe place that Diane can say these subversive words and we're all listening to her respectfully. I remember that just a few years ago during the Iranian deal, Jews were not able to say things like that. It was considered, traitor to the Jewish people. Diane, you're not a traitor to the Jewish people. You are saying something that many of us feel, that it's hard to have a personal connection with a country that is turned to be so different from your values. But let me say one thing. Unlike France and Italy, Israel reflects on you and Israel affects you. If Israel declares your children as not Jewish enough, that affects you. And if Israel passes a law tomorrow that all Arab babies of the male gender have their right hand cut off, that reflects on you. Not that a law like this is chas, it's not. But I'm just saying, if we go all the way off track, it reflects on every Jew, whether you like it or not. And when you say, I don't have a personal connection and I want to disconnect, this is exactly what this conversation is about. I am telling you that I and many Israelis need your help. You can participate. We can save Israel. It's the only Jewish state on the planet. If there was another Jewish state, Diane, I'm on the first plane going there. But there isn't. It's the one chance the Jews have to run a sovereign Jewish state. We will not get another chance. It's probably the most important historic development of our lifetime as Jews. It's way too important to be left to the Israelis. We need you to say to yourself, I'm going to fight for a personal relationship, and I will start with Anat Hoffman. I am sincerely giving you my hand, and I'm telling you, let's work together. Let's remind Israelis of a Jewish culture that is diverse and inclusive, It is possible. It is not too late. I have 3 children in this country and 1 grandchild. And I am determined that when my grandchild wants to have a bat mitzvah, she can read Torah at the women's section of the wall. And it looks like I will deliver on that because she's 7, and it looks like we're getting there.
Anat,
So I'm asking you to get engaged.
Anat,
Yes.
hi, this is Tamara again.
Oh.
How do you, what inroads do you feel Gilad Kariv will be able to make in the Knesset? I know he has a lot of opposition. Hopefully he also has a lot of people backing him up. And I know that you're closer to him than we are, but do you feel that he'll be able to make some inroads?
Look, the first thing Gilad will do is introduce Israelis to a different kind of Judaism. Reform Judaism has been demonized by the ultra-Orthodox. They're very, very frightened and scared that the secular Israeli majority will be introduced to a different kind of Judaism. There's certainly a hunger among the seculars of Israel for a Judaism that is open, flexible, liberal, and accepting. And the Orthodox, there are 2. I used to be, in my youth, I used to be Israel swimming champion. And there are 2 ways to win a competition. One is to practice a lot and to become the best in the country. And the other is to break both legs of your opponent. The ultra-Orthodox are not trying to become better than the Reform. They're trying to stifle the Reform, to take away our oxygen, to make us, to demonize us systematically so that Jews don't come to us. However, in a recent poll, 12% of Israelis said they would rather have a Reform or conservative rabbi in their lives, and this number is growing. Gilad wasn't elected because in spite of being a Reform rabbi. He was elected because he is a Reform rabbi. So I believe that Israelis are very open to other possibilities of worship, other ways of observing Shabbat, other ways of marriage and divorce. And what we need is to help them out.
And can I ask a very stupid question? And
Go
that
ahead, Hazel.
confuses me. You pointed out that the power of the Orthodox is that they're needed for a coalition. Israel, I have a sister who lives in Israel. I know Israel has no constitution, no Bill of Rights. How did Israel acquire this form of government? It seems to paralyze and create very unpleasant bedfellows. And right now, I don't know. Right now, Netanyahu, there's nobody can make a coalition. We may have a fifth of it. Well, let me just turn this off. Okay. So what's the possibility of a change in the form of Israeli government? Because that seems to be so much at the root of all these things that you're talking about.
That's how you do it.
Basically, we inherited the political system from the British. And we had 39 parties running on this 4th election that we just had in March. 39 parties.
It's crazy.
Of them, 12 passed the threshold. The threshold is 3.25% of the kosher votes. And 12 parties passed the threshold. We have lots of broken little pieces of parties. And in order to get a small party into the coalition, you need to promise them the moon. And it looks like Netanyahu so far is unable to build a coalition. He was the first one that got the mandate. And this evening, Mr. Lapid spoke about what he's going to do when Netanyahu fails completely and the mandate goes to him. But yes, a fifth election is very, very possible because, Hazel, even if one of them is able to build a coalition, it will be a very shaky one. Each one of those fringe small parties, they cannot live with each other. And we are in trouble. I agree. But one of the major issues that is rocking Israel is what kind of Judaism we have here. And why are you my partners? Because you have a seat at the table. You are Jews and you have Jewish values. And if Israel today adopts values such as ethnocentrism, racism, chauvinism, it is your duty to say, no, these are not my Jewish values. I believe in tolerance, in equality, in religious pluralism, in diversity, and in democracy. I think North American Jews have to speak up. And that's what the aim of this dialogue is. And I must tell you, some congregations don't want to hear me. I'm very grateful that this group was willing to invite me and that this group is hearing me. And I think that, you know, I'm not big on the pursuit of happiness as the aim of life. I'm much bigger on the pursuit of meaning. And I think I'm offering you something wonderful, an important meaning to your life. Link your arms with other Israelis and let's make a difference. Rebecca, you wanted to speak?
Thank you.
My question is, how do you feel about the term occupied in connection with Israel? Because when I hear that term personally, it kind of makes my blood boil a little. I was just curious on your take on that. You know,
Look, if there
places
was a
being
moral scale of all the moral wrongs that are happening in Israel today, for sure the occupation is number one. There are millions of people under our rule that have no civil rights. It's not something that the Israel Religious Action Centers works on. But in my moral scale, this is the worst thing that we are doing. And the worst thing is that we're used to it. We think it's all right that the neighbors are denied rights that we have. So yes, my blood is also boiling, but I'm active in other organizations to fight that. The Israel Religious Action Center is about freedom of religion, freedom from religion, freedom of conscience. And we are the only religious movement in Israel that has a racism crisis center, that we fight for the rights of Druzim, of Bedouim, of gypsies, of Christians. I can tell you about a case we just won that I really like. It's a case we represented the Herd Owners Association of the Negev. The Negev is half of Israel, which is a desert, and there are many Bedouins there, not many Jews. And they raise goats, black goats, about 250,000 of them. And our Ministry of Agriculture, in its immense wisdom, decided that the Bedouins will pay twice as much for a cubic meter of water. Water is the most important resource in the Negev. Twice as much than Jews who raise white sheep. And the reason is that the black goat, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, is seasonal, and the white sheep is not seasonal. Well, there's a little joke book that Bedouins wrote with where does a Bedouin stash his black goats when they're off season? It's a joke. It's, of course, they shit and drink and eat all year round. We went to court. We showed that this is a racist policy aimed at cutting the livelihood of the Bedouins and favoring the 600 Jewish farms that raise white sheep. We won. Our clients look like Abraham. They have staff, they wear dresses, they smell of bonfire, and they brought me a male goat as a gift for winning the case. I said, what am I going to do with the goat? They said, put it in the trunk of the car. It's very good. fat. I said, all the lawyers are vegetarian. We're not going to eat it. Please take it home. But there are 250,000 grateful goats in the Negev, grateful to the reform movement. And I ask you, Rebecca, why did the reform movement spend resources on representing Bedouins? There won't be a reform synagogue in any one of their villages. Why did we do it?
Rebecca, unmute. Unmute.
Because they are people who deserve the same respect as anybody else.
And because we see it as a religious act. We see representing them as an expression of our Judaism.
Yeah. And I had the most amazing food there, by the way, when I went as a 16-year-old in Nifty many moons ago. It was a really amazing experience to appreciate people outside of, you know, what I normally see. And when I went to Israel, by the way, interesting because I was there for about 3 days, and unlike, Diane Figueroa's experience, I felt home right away. And I always treasure that.
You sound sad.
Anat,
Any more questions?
we just lost you for a little
I
while.
see Gail.
Um,
I
Yeah,
got
let
lost.
Gail
I
ask
got
you. Yeah,
frozen.
we lost you for a little while, and we're losing you now again.
I was asking Rebecca why she sounds so sad.
Unmute, Rebecca.
Becca did not unmute. I sound sad because it was like it was a long time ago. I'm reading my journal now. I'm a writer, and I kept a very detailed journal of my trip, and we went to Prague, and then we went to Israel, and it seems like such a long time ago, and
Yeah.
such a it was a special experience.
I see Gail has her hand up. Gail, you wanted to ask something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Okay, so my question is, what human rights are guaranteed to LGBTQ citizens of Israel at this present time?
The list is quite long, and I'm very proud of it, but there are some issues that are not yet taken care of, and we are in court with them. Anyone who wants to adopt a child in Israel, a Jewish child, has to be a man and a woman. Children's Services will not give a child to a same-sex family. Anyone who adopted a non-Jewish child and wants to have them converted will have a Orthodox couples have priority, supposedly because the conversion process is going to be easier for an Orthodox family rather than a same-sex, Reform, or conservative family. We're in court on that as well. But we were able to secure the LGBTQ community in Israel to secure the right to have gay pride, even though, sadly, 5 years ago, Shira Banki, a 16-year-old demonstrator in the gay parade, was stabbed to death by an ultra-Orthodox guy, Ishai Shlisel. Shlisel was there 8 years before he killed Shira Banki. He stabbed 3 people 8 years before. He spent 8 years in jail. He was released 3 weeks before the gay parade. He bought a big knife and he stabbed and murdered Shira Banki. The Jerusalem police if anything, should have asked themselves, where is Yishai Shlisel today when the gay parade started marching, and made sure that he's in a police station, closed and locked. It's a waste of a life, and the Shira Banki movement is, until today, very, very active in trying to connect ultra-Orthodox public to the needs of LGBT. The ultra-Orthodox believe that there is no, ultra-Orthodox have kosher phones and kosher computers. And the lines that are omitted from a kosher phone, first lines that are omitted are the LGBT lines. They can't call the helpline, the support line, or any kind. We don't have such phenomena among us, they say. Do you believe them? Do you believe there are no LGBTQ people among the ultra-Orthodox of Israel?
No, no way.
So shouldn't they be connected also to the hotlines that support people who are this way and that give them a license to be who they are?
Absolutely.
So we still have things to go. I want to warn you about something called pink washing. Because the Tel Aviv is considered one of the friendliest gay towns in the world, and the gay parade of Tel Aviv is 250,000 people, and the person marching in front of the Tel Aviv parade is the mayor himself, Israel uses sometimes this phenomena to tell you, oh, LGBTQ in Israel is unique in the whole Middle East. There is no such place. Let me just remind you that Tel Aviv is not the rest of the country, and that pink washing is a way to detract you from some serious issues. The fact that we have 2 or 3 ambassadors who are gay, and the fact that we have a member of Knesset or 2 that are gay, do not mean that Israel is a liberal place where your sexual orientation is accepted in all places. Far from it. So we still have a way to go. Beware of pink washing. I see we came to the end of our hour. I just wanted to say something that, this is many years of marriage speaking. I believe that love is what remains after we know the truth. And I think we had a hard talk about Israel today. We mentioned some things that are, some truths that are somewhat hard to digest. And I'd like to beg you to unmute yourselves when it comes to Israel. Engaging through us with Israel's policies will give your life meaning and importance. I think it gives my life meaning. I think it will make you engaged with the Israelis that you are, we're like-minded. We share the same values. We are all Reformed Jews, and we're doing something about something very important, the only Jewish state on the planet. So let's work together, and please join that campaign that I'm so skillfully was able to bring on the chat. Tamara, you have my complete sympathies. I'm useless.
Thank you so much, Anat.
And Eric, thank you for a wonderful atmosphere. We're very lucky to have you with us here tonight.
Yes, and I put the campaign link again in the chat, and we are always on the lookout. If you need to know what's going on in progressive Judaism in Israel, go onto the IRAC Iraq Center on their website, and you will see everything that's happening.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Shalom. Bye-bye. See you in Israel.
Thank you, Anat.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Lehitraot.
Thank you, Tamara.
That was quite interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Tamara.
Excellent.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you,
Thank
Tamara.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tamara.
for thanking
Thank
me.
you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Very much, Tamara.
I can't. Very interesting.
Okay, everybody have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Aye.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Mhm.